Welcome to the Healing My Parts podcast, a podcast dedicated to educating and raising awareness about dissociative identity disorder, also known as DID. We are your hosts, the system behind Healing My Parts, which also includes parts that function as a therapist and leader in a mental health niche space. We'll be sharing tips and tools that have helped us and many others, while also sharing insights from our own journey of living with the condition. We'll also be hosting guests for conversations to help educate, dispel myths, and most especially help those living with dissociative identities and professionals who treat the condition. Thank you so much for tuning in. And now, let's get healing. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited for today's episode. It's so much fun to be able to bring people stories and folks who have survived a lot, who are navigating DID, who have things to share with you. And today we have a really special guest. It is a system known as Mike in the Committee. So, Mike in the Committee, welcome. We're so glad that you're with us today. And I wonder if you guys want to share a little bit about who you are, how you discovered you're a system, what led you to start speaking out about DID, any of that good stuff.
Hey, thank you foremost for inviting us into this safe space. And we really do feel it's a safe space, so thank you. Well, my name is Mike Cuevas. I'm a father first, author, and a lived experience advocate for dissociative identity disorder. We didn't discover we were a system through like a special moment or even diagnosis. We discovered we were a system through recognizing patterns, emotions that weren't really ours, and reactions that didn't make sense until after we stopped asking, what's wrong with me? And we started asking, what protected me?
What a powerful reframe.
Definitely. And that's a lot of the work that we do now. It is based on an acronym called BAR: breath, acknowledge, and reframe. And that allows us to slow down the moment that seems too overwhelming. So we take a deep breath, B, and then that A, acknowledge which part of us actually got triggered. Because something that we learned living with TID is that not all of our parts get triggered to the certain event or the certain situation at hand. So the acknowledgement really lets us narrow in on which part of us got triggered. And then the R is a reframe. And a general reframe that we do, especially like moments like this, is it's okay. We got this. You don't have to do this by yourself. We're with you and we can work together at this. You're safe. And it really allows us to slow down the moment.
I don't know about everybody listening, but that just made us feel really good hearing you say that. You know, there are a lot of people listening who are newer to their own diagnosis and therapists who are also newer to treating people who have DID. And one of the questions that comes up all the time is when you're talking about identifying what part is affected, how do you do that? People look for, and it's different for everybody. Sometimes people just know, some people ask inside, people look for somatic symptoms. There's all kinds of different ways, but curious about your process when you're like, let me figure out who is impacted by this.
The way to understand ourselves was a long journey. It really was. And it came, honestly, after some therapeutic work. Honestly, we had process of therapeutic work because we did EDMR, then we did some IFS work, and then we did some hypnotherapy work. So all of that gradually and naturally expanded our understanding. So now the way we're able to process things in real time is through somatic work. So as the situation or environment around us changes, we feel it in different parts of ourselves, and that's able to interpret, okay, what's going on in here, and who decides to front, who decides to host. Either way, they're always going to be there. So like the key is always be safe within ourselves and holding space and empathy for one another as we're processing what's going on. And that's how we handle it.
When you first started recognizing that you guys were a system and realized that you had parts that could function independently, did you automatically have that empathy that you're talking about now? Did you ever go through a period of being like, "I don't know who you guys are, but, like, get out. I don't want you guys around," or I'm it could be so many different things, but I'm just curious if you went through that bumpy period or that period of it feeling really surreal.
Bumpy period is an interesting way of putting it because for us, it was more like chaos.
Fair.
It was, right? It's because we really grew up with the understanding that yes, there's something there. We weren't officially diagnosed until early last year, but we had tools to survive because something that we learned was DID really is an adaptive survival system. So we've learned to adapt to situations at hand. Now, some people see that as compartmentalization. We just saw it as an adaptive response. And that understanding allow us to realize that we have a superpower. There's parts of us that kept us safe. There's parts of us that allowed us to survive and endure what we needed to in order to get through what was going on at that time. The chaos was from not knowing that those parts of us that was creating that chaos were so young and so raw that they didn't know how to safely express their emotions and they were given the safety to stay within themselves. So once we came to that understanding, we didn't no longer view them as chaos or dark entities. We recognize them as they're young. They need some attention. They need some love. And that is what shifted from chaos to that empathy.
That just feels so soothing to hear you say that. And I love how organically you guys all came to the place of this is an adaptation. This is a strength. That's a superpower. I do feel like most of us who have DID feel that way. And there are absolutely some practitioners in the field who are talking about it that way as well. But like we both know that hasn't always been the case where there are people who are trying to quote cure you, whatever that is, and they don't recognize the strengths. When you were talking about your parts, I was thinking when you said they're really young and raw, and I'm like, and they're such little badasses. Look at what they brought you through. It's just so incredible.
Hell yeah. Sorry, they agree with you. They really do. There's one part in particular that I was really fearful of, and I'm not ashamed to admit this anymore. It was really my darkest enemy. It was him, and I didn't understand him. Why? Because he didn't know how to express his emotions. So the emotions were really raw, right? Like anger, fear. And when we discovered that he was young and we started to give him that attention, that empathy, man, that intensity really softened up a lot. And we still know him as raw, as primal, and he understands that. But he walks around with a little bit more bounce to his step. It's not so much rigid. And I could feel him right now just on my spine, just and I love him because I could feel the joy in him now that we've expressed and gave him that attention. But we also know he's a protector and he's able to protect us when you need to. And walking with empathy with ourselves and walking together, united in brotherhood, allows us to stay calm in the moment and call upon him when needed.
A lot of people will say, when I saw, or when we as a system saw this one part that we were all afraid of as a part that holds so much benevolence for us. It really ultimately cares about not just our survival, but about really doing well in the world. When we saw those intentions, that part softened and we were able to actually forge a relationship together. Is that kind of how it works for you guys? Or
Definitely, especially with my boys. I don't know if we mentioned it on the show or not, but I got two young boys, 11 and a 5-year-old. And that part, we call him the other. He really loves my oldest son. And I guess our other recognizes his other. So we bond and we wrestle, we love each other. And really was really expanded more than anything was love and patience for them and for our family and for our loved ones. And that is what makes us so grateful and thankful for putting in all that work, because where we at now compared to where we are when we started is a complete 180. And it all started with my son. He was 9 at the time. And I guess there was a part of us that recognized the other in him and saw that the other in him was hurting and was sad. So we approached him and we asked him, "Hey, Pop, what is it like to have us as your father? What is it like to actually live with us?" And his response was something that we were not prepared to accept. It was insight before capacity. So we really fragmentized. We really broke. Our CPTSD really flared up to where my body was convulsing. My facial reactions were really at all time. I couldn't control my face, and my stuttering became so severe. It took maybe 30 seconds to finish a sentence. It was really, really bad. And at that time, we thought MMA was a good therapy to, because it was we learned it was a fight freezer pros. Sorry, I'm not getting our terminology wrong right now.
you're good. Fight, flight, freeze.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we knew that MMA was something we heard. So we started knocking on MMA, and that's when we really started to feel the shame and the guilt of what we had, and it really brought up all that shame and trauma from past years of staying silent. And because sometimes that silence feels so much safer than saying what's going inside our heads, and keeping it in and bottled up for so long that that's what caused our body to be like that. I mean, we're seeking an outlet, but too many MMA gyms were just turning us away. Like, you know what? We see what's going on with you. We don't want that here. And so many doors and so many rejections. And often, as some of us do, right, as we seek help or we like stretch out our hands, but finally there was a boxing gym right next to an MMA gym, and I'm like, you know what? Let me just try my luck there. I opened the door, and the coach, he didn't interrogate me. He didn't ask me about my past. He just saw me, and he asked, "Mike, can you get inside that ring?" Yeah, coach, I could get inside that ring. And when we did, he just gave us 5 minutes of presence. He allowed our nervous system to really calm down. He allowed us to be seen as a whole and not as an identity broken. Once he gave us that, it's almost like he must have felt the shift, because he put his hand on our shoulder and pointed at the door that we walked in from and said, "Mike, the man walking at that door today is stronger than the man that walked in. Not because you changed, bro, because you stayed."
What a gift.
Yeah, it really was. And from that day forward, I made it a point to address our parts and heal our parts, to not run from them, to accept them as an adaptive response to our superpowers, and stop being shameful and guilty. of them.
One of the things that's really striking me at the moment is how that unfolded for you guys. Plenty of people listening believe that they have to have a certain type of therapy or use a certain kind of modality or find a particular practitioner in order to move forward and heal. And so I just wanted to pause to call attention to the fact that your one of your biggest moments of healing was in a boxing ring in a gym.
It really was. And we were, and to put it in context, we were already doing therapy. We were already trying to seek help for what was going on here. And at that time, we didn't know that safety plays such a vital role in our healing that after maybe 5 months of going to therapy, our system finally said it's okay to reveal ourselves. And I'm never going to forget this. We had a therapy session and we were trying to just be frontal and, be proper. And then one of us, we're here, we're here. And obviously, we noticed micro expressions first. So we saw the therapist just get a clipboard and just like, okay. So cat was out of the bag, but it was also because we noticed she had given us the proper time. She, and not knowingly, she was softly building rapport with us to build trust. She didn't try to rush information out of us. She wasn't trying to give us so much insight and fix us right away. I think that's why we were able to slowly raise our hand and reveal ourselves to her. There was a shift that happened after that that truly went from self criticism, from what's wrong with me, to self curiosity. What happened to us? And that shift was such vital to our learning because we learned, okay, we need to learn how to feel safe in our nervous system before we actually understand what happened to us. And it wasn't until that boxing ring that we understood that.
That's honestly amazing when I think about that because you can have direct conversations with people all the time to explain the importance of being safe enough. And the way in which you guys all come to these really organic conclusions and realizations is really impressive.
Thank you for that. Let us take a pause to give us a pat on the back that we often fail to do. Impressive. Thank you for that word. I think this is why we advocate too, because we know what it's like to be in the silence. We still have those moments. Don't get it wrong. I appreciate that we are where we are, but we still have our weak moments where we can find ourselves locked in the closet. And it takes mental exercise, mental work to gather our thoughts, take that deep breath and acknowledge what triggered us, and then reframe in order to get out of that closet. And that's why I'm also thankful and grateful to be in the position where we're at today, because prior to our position and being able to do what we do, we were so caught up in work. There was that part of us that we needed to succeed. We needed to make millions of dollars to take care of our family. That ruled everything until this moment. And then when that moment happened, what mattered more to us was the emotional wealth to our boys more than anything, because being able to show them and demonstrate how to properly and safely express their emotions in real time is such much more of a better gift than what money can buy.
You guys have so much wisdom that I think was probably hard won through your journey. I remember at one point when we were talking offline that you had mentioned kind of going, I think it was going through hypnosis that helped identify trauma that you didn't, if I remember correctly, didn't consciously remember was there. It had to be such a jarring experience to go through and had to be such a difficult experience. And the reason I'm circling to that is because I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how that impacted your healing journey. There's so many things that you do that are impressive, that are just so rooted in this compassion and love and wise empathy. And I suspect that there were times that were really tumultuous for you guys. And so, how did you get through the tumultuous period? How did you guys hang on and keep going?
And keep going during those tumultuous periods, right? Because it's only human to have them. Let me take a moment and pause and recognize that it is human to be okay in that safe space. For us, was really going back to our why. One thing that forever changed us was when our son was born, our oldest son. He unknowingly taught us what unconditional love truly meant. Unconditional no matter what. And during those tumultuous periods, I really had to focus on, okay, why am I going to walk through the fires of hell and be thankful that I'm not getting burned while I'm walking through it? What and why am I going to go through it? And the answer was my boys. It's almost like we vision able to make a fire, and on the other side of that lake was an island, and our boys were calling to us. And during those tumultuous periods, that became our light. That became our, all right, I'll give this one more fucking shot. I'll do this one more mental exercise. I'll do this bar one more fucking time. Excuse my language, but those tumultuous times are real. And we shouldn't be shameful of them. We shouldn't feel guilty of them. We should acknowledge that they're there. It's okay to have them. It's okay to hold space in our nervous system. And I believe the work that we have done has allowed our nervous system to learn a new pattern. So when that tumultuous period now comes, our level of empathy for ourselves really expands to we're not locked in that state for too long. And I say that for too long because this cycle always repeats. I think we talked about it right before we started recording. The longer you think you healed, or the longer you think, yeah, things figure it out, man. There's always that next thing ready to like, all right, let me test how well you are now.
That's so true, though. Some people liken it to that layer of the onion, right? It's like, how big is the onion? God. You had mentioned earlier when you were describing your parts that didn't know how to process emotion and that their emotion was really raw, and you'd referred to them in your system as like dark entities. I'm wondering if you could walk people through how you got to a place of maybe curiosity to get to know them, how you figured it out, because I think there are people that are stuck. You know, they recognize there's like a part or two or more or many in their system that just really, really feel fucking scary. And they don't want to look, don't like, no thanks. How how did you get to that place of saying like, okay, I'm gonna look and I'm gonna start communicating with them and I'm gonna find out what's going on here?
I know. That's exactly what happened. We did our hypnotherapy. One thing that we had to understand was that we needed to have the ability to hold space and be present while learning what happened to us. It was really important for us that is not what was going to be revealed, but the when and how it got revealed during our journey. Because when we learned we were a system, we did something they tell you not to do, and that's rush your understanding of what's going on. And of course, we don't work that way. We want to know what the pieces on the chessboard are and where they're at. So we ventured on a journey. It was a 30-day full front assault on our system. Every day, I would lock myself in a room for an hour and look into the laptop, and I had a list of questions for our parts. Now, at that time, we thought we were only six. Asking questions may slowly start to reveal themselves. And memories just opened up like a damn floodgate that we were not prepared for. Yeah. And that's when our face twitching and our spasming really went out of control. And that's when we realized we don't have the capacity for this yet. And at that time, I was working full time. And when I mean full time, 50 to 60 hours a week. I was a full time dad. You don't stop being that, period. I was a partner to the best of my ability that I could at that time. And I was trying to manage all the fucking chaos that's in here. And for anyone that has the idea, you know how overwhelming and stimulating that can be sometimes. So having to deal with all the normal stuff on top of everything that my system was ready to, I'm really surprised we didn't have like a nervous breakdown or anything. And I attribute that because I was in the process of writing my second book. If I wasn't doing that at the time, we would have been screwed severely. So I'm so grateful that I took the time to start doing that while everything was going on.
What was it about writing the book that was helpful?
Putting our thoughts into writing was our CPTSD. We were in denial. That ain't us. We know how to endure. We got rocky blood. Man, we know how to take what life has bringing to us and keep going. Ain't shit wrong with us. Lo and behold, right?
Spread.
Yeah. This is the part about dissociation that I hate sometimes. I forgot what the original question was.
Oh, how writing was helpful on that because you had said, "Oh, thank
Thank you.
God that I was writing my second book."
Yeah. So working on that CPTSD, we knew that we had to claim our sovereignty. That's something that we never had in our life because growing up, we got misdiagnosed early. So we were told it's all in your head. It's all in your head. Our Mexican heritage played a vital role to thinking that it was witchcraft. So that now played a different role into everything. So writing truly became a way to claim our sovereignty. So daily mantras, those daily mental exercises, when we would create mantras for the day, we would create a daily exercise. Okay, if this is going to be our mantra for today, we're going to do this morning, and we're going to reflect on it tonight doing this. And that became a journal that slowly became developed into our book. And we refer to it throughout all this time because that chaos and everything, I had to find a way for all our system to work together. And the way to do that was we envision ourselves in a forge. Now, if you break that down just a little bit, a forge has the heat, has the fire. And a lot of people, and what we thought at first is the moment you get into the forge, we start to shape each other. He wasn't prepared or understood that the steel or rawness needs to heat up. It needs to heat up before we can actually start shaping it into what we want to become. What do we really want? And as we started working on it and those memories started coming back and we started to ask ourselves throughout the 30 days, realizing these memories and discovering what truly happened to us, we had to do the mantras to remind ourselves that we are who we are. It's okay to be who we are. Ain't no one else's interpretation of what goes on in here any valuable than what we think of ourselves. By the time we ended that book, I swear we had the capacity to come back into our home, and I'll get to that in a little bit, to feel safe enough, not only within ourselves, but to be around our boys and our partner.
You had mentioned so many questions. And so many questions all of a sudden. Can you tell people a little bit about your books? You mentioned that you wrote a first one, you have a second one. What are they about? Can people find them?
Definitely. The books can be found on Amazon, obviously, where all books are sold. The second one is right? The second one is called The Throne Within. And we wrote that because we knew that sovereignty lay within ourselves. It didn't lay on somebody else's opinion or interpretation of what goes on in here. The first book was The Many Faces of Me, and that became our memoir of how we discovered that we were a system. And the first time I came across your podcast was when I listened to an episode of you and the Giano system. And I laughed and smirked because she shared experience on that episode that was very similar to our experience with the anxiety attack. Because we were remote salesmen. So we were in a car daily, driving back and forth. So when she shared that experience, I'm like, so crazy. We didn't feel so alone. And that's another reason why we do what we do. Because hearing stories from other DIDers and other nervous systems really helps us know and understand we're not alone and that we can heal on our own time in our own process. Because that was the first time I understood that not all DID systems are the same. We don't all have the same symptoms. We don't all have the same access to the same resources. And I'm like, dude, I gotta write about my experience. I gotta write about how we process things. And what I liked about the first book was the first 3 or 4 chapters are really kind of chaotic. And I kind of did that on purpose because that's how it is at first. And as you slowly start to work on yourselves and you slowly start to read the book, it becomes softer and gentle and more compassionate towards ourselves.
There's
And I chose to write it in that way.
We'll link to both books in the show notes so that people can find them pretty easily. What you just said is so important, though, because so many people are looking for reflections of themselves, for validation, for affirmation. Do I have this? Is this really what I'm dealing with? And a lot of times, if it doesn't match exactly, I have so many people that reach out and they're like, I don't have this, or that doesn't happen, or it's different for me in this way, that way, or the other way. It kind of doesn't matter how many times we say, if you've met one system, you've met one system. Everybody's still looking for the commonalities for that affirmation to feel better about it. And I really love how you were talking about getting to that place of realizing what happens for me is what happens for us internally. Nobody else can define that. And just kind of settling into who you are, free from the external definitions of who you quote unquote should be to encompass DID or whatever. I love that, and so I hope people who are listening, who are systems, who are questioning their own validity, can hear what you're saying because I think it's really important.
Thank you for that too, because that is why we do what we do. We spend decades, not months, not years, decades, just living with that shame, living with that guilt, and honestly fear, because that stigma that's out there with DID and
Yeah.
what was normal. We find it funny. Our system finds it hysterically fucking ironic that they changed the name from multiple personality disorder to DID for 2 reasons. One, you put in a mask on the original name, and that's what fucking DID is. Two, that's what we fought against going back to therapy after being misdiagnosed was we thought we had multiple personality disorder and not knowing or hearing about DID. When our therapist first told us, you have DID, what the fuck is that? To be honest, and it wasn't until she told us it was multiple personality disorder. I think more people would be open to sharing their experiences because there's a lot of us from the old generations that grew up on that term, multiple personality disorder, and it's so stigmatized, especially with Hollywood, that when we stay in that isolation, the shame and the guilt just multiplies. And that's when we say stigma doesn't hurt feelings. It truly hurts futures
Yeah.
because you isolate someone from reaching out. You isolate yourself from thinking there's hope when there really is hope.
It's also really lonely when you feel like you have to navigate it all by yourself, or if you have to hide it completely, you can't acknowledge it itself. It's almost like it fractures you. And I don't mean that
Yeah.
as a system, but I mean it's just when you have to go through your job, for example, feeling like you've if oh my god, if somebody finds out what's gonna happen, am I gonna lose my job? Because people who have DID do lose their jobs because somebody finds out about their diagnosis, right?
And if it was, shut up. We don't want to blame it on that because when that part of us starts to, hey, they fired us because of DID, the first thing we do is reach for excuses. It's like, well, it wasn't really DID. They said it's because we weren't quote unquote unproductive or we weren't doing uncooperative with upper management. They always find a loophole. And rather than focus on that, we actually just looked internally and like, look, man, we weren't prepared to handle what was going on and to truly handle work responsibility. And we cannot process emotions for ourselves. So that self responsibility of being more prepared for the situation at hand became more important to us than blaming or excusing others. But you're right though, because and the more I advocate and the more I speak to the DID community, the moment somebody speaks up, that's the first thing that employers think of is chaos, unpredictability. No, we got to get rid of this. And that shame, that guilt, that fear is what keeps people from speaking out. And I think that's one of the reasons why we decided to just advocate and try to find as many corporate partners to go speak to let them know the mental health is real. We all have mental health, just like we all have a heartbeat, just like we all have lungs. We all have mental health, just that some of us know how to handle it better than others. And we shouldn't shame others that deal with it in different ways. We should extend that empathy, not just on a daily basis, but on the work level as well.
I think that's the place where media has really done the community such a huge disservice because there are people who have worked really successfully in jobs for 10, 20 years. And when their diagnosis is kind of outed, whether by choice or by accident, all of a sudden they lose their job and they've been doing just fine in their job the entire time. And you're right, they find a loophole. They can't say, I'm firing you because I found out you have DID. That's illegal. But they'll find some other reason, including just a layoff, right? But it's pretty clear that the person's lost their job because it happened in proximity to their diagnosis being revealed. And there are systems that work together really well. They can do any job. You can actually find stability in working too much. And there are also people who you can struggle at work, right? You can have littles who are so sick of you working and they need their own time to have fun and to play, or teens in the system who need to go cause their own fun trouble or whatever it is. And that's sometimes where systems really struggle at work because parts start taking over and the communication isn't in place. There isn't that negotiation of time in the body, and things can get a little chaotic. And it's not usually a reason to lose your job. You know, it's you give people a little bit of time. We don't fire people if they need to take time off because they're struggling with depression or anxiety or addiction, or hopefully we're not doing that. Not supposed to be. Sometimes systems do need to take a little bit of a timeout to recalibrate and get some negotiation and understanding and agreements in place for how we move through the workday. Kind of like if you enjoy having a roof over your head and eating food every day, we probably are going to need to put in some time at work to be able to do that. And that can be hard for some parts in the system.
That's definitely hard. That's definitely hard for us now because we still have that part of us that is like, we need to support our family. We need to have millions of dollars. But like I said, it's about learning new patterns and learning new or teaching our nervous system different things. So after we got terminated, we had to come to decision. Do we want to go straight back to work, be able to provide, or we had enough of a nest egg to really work on ourselves for 3 months? And we chose to work on ourselves for 3 months. And it's something that I'm incredibly grateful for, even though it tapped us out. But when it did tap us out, I'm grateful for that moment too, because we had to make a decision of how we're going to work together harmoniously. How are we going to go into back into the workforce, be able to provide for our family, and be prepared for that next event, for that next situation that arises. So that part of us that seeks comfort and working, and that part of us that needs to knock on 100 doors just to get one sale, instead of working it or for others, a job, now we apply it towards our advocacy. And that is how I give that part of me peace. Because something that we realize is that we needed a supportive team. Not just one method of healing was going to heal all of us. And this is why I continue to do boxing now, is because through boxing really became a way for our nervous system to learn how to feel safe within our own body. And that's true for different parts of us because sometimes when we're sparring with our coach, he can tell who he's sparring with just by our facial reactions and the way we posture ourselves. But he makes it a point to always acknowledge the effort. There's times where he knows, when the other is out and he wants to get his workout on. But he acknowledges the effort. Like, for example, when we're tired and we're winded, and he knows that we're at our exhausted point, he takes that moment to reflect. All right, Mikey, when you're out there in the real world, bro, and you're mentally fatigued and all of your parts are exhausted, bro, now is the time that you show yourself what you're made of. Get back in the ring, bro. And that honestly allows all of us to just hold each other's hand, be like, we got this. And we all walk united, man. It's really, really amazing.
The feeling of cohesion that I get when I listen to you talk about kind of working together as a team is really just heartwarming.
You know, thank you. We try. We really have tried a lot. We Hearing you say that is almost like a mirror of our hard work, because something that I know is true for a lot of DID systems and that I know is true for a lot of people is all the hard work that we do behind closed doors,
Yeah.
all the hard work that we do when we think nobody's looking. That's the moments that really matter. And sometimes we don't recognize that in ourselves or fail to reward ourselves. So hearing you say that really is a reflection of all the work we've done. So we appreciate you. We thank you for providing this safe space for us.
It's interesting. I think back about what you guys have been through, based on what you've shared, the kind of chaos and the tumult and the realization of your own trauma and how that moved through your body in such a basically violent way. And if people were they can I'm sure they can hear it as you're talking, but sitting with you, you have this grounded presence that feels really empathic. Like you if people were just, like, sitting with you now and they knew nothing about your past, they'd be like, "Man, who is this how much yoga have you done? How much Eastern philosophy have you studied? You're so calm, you're so grounded, you're so centered." It's what a h and the work that you had to do to get there is pretty incredible.
You. Thank you.
You
It wasn't easy for those of us living with DID. It's not easy. It's
yeah,
simple. This is truly simple. Have more empathy for yourself. It's not easy though. So thank you. I really do appreciate that.
you're welcome. You do a bunch of stuff to raise awareness, like, you recently did a walk to raise awareness for
It
DID. What was that like for you guys?
was interesting because that walk, man, you know, that part of us that just rushes into things without really examining the precautionary measures.
We all have those.
Yeah. That mother took over and we had like 60 pounds of gear. We had a laptop and we were trying to walk from Las Vegas to the Pacific Ocean, a total of 287 miles.
Wow.
No extra clothes, no camping gear, and he thinks that he was gonna make it. And I'm like, so that was the first try. And we did it. Honestly, that first try was really impactful because we learned that we can actually walk our trauma out. We learned that the body needs to let go. Remember, I was talking about the capacity
Yeah.
that the walk allowed us to expand our capacity for the memories, for the trauma that was being reintroduced to our system. Now, that first walk was really full of the trials and tribulations of our life, really in one walk, because in that one walk, we went pretty much how we dress in street clothes. We know what we look like with the high socks and baggy shorts and folded up hat, walking with a backpack, and just roaming and walking through the desert. We stopped by the last building before the actually outstretch of the desert, and we needed water. Because of how we were dressed, they denied us water. I'm like, "Yeah, it's
Oh
all
my
right. You know
gosh.
what? I still got 2 liters. It's all right." We walked another 5 miles, and we didn't know that that solitary area was a practice shooting range. And because of the way we look and because we know how they treat homeless around here, within a matter of minutes, we heard a ricochet off to the right side of us. You know, ding! I'm like, oh shit. So we stopped. Of course, our protector and analyzers engaged instinct, our instinct just quickly shut into place. And then we heard a second ricochet. And this time we actually saw the dirt come on. Like, oh shit. You know what? This is not the right time for this. We need to be more prepared.
Oh my gosh.
So we posted about our experience, we posted about what's going on, but we continued because we were thankful. We were truly thankful because then we came to realization of okay, now we got to be better prepared for our journey, just like we need to be better prepared for the healing that we have to do in our mind. So the walk really became a parallel to our healing journey. So where the second time we tried it, we were a little bit more prepared. We had camping gear, we had the right gear on us. We had hiking gear this time with a camel hat, you know. We played the part. To we had enough water and we had a spotter with us that was following us with water. But just for shits and giggles, we stopped by that same building to ask them if they would give us water. Now that we have a different look and we had a haircut bust. Yes, sure, sir. Here, as a matter of fact, here's our outhead. I'm like, man.
Wow.
Of course, that how that plays into your psyche too, right? And how we had to deal with that healing. Furthermore, we continue on our journey, and when this walk that we do along the side road next to the highway. So you got these semi trucks just blasting through. And when we were dressed in street clothes, they were just flying right next to not giving them to her. Whereas in this time, we had, of course, our walking gear, our clothes. Truck drivers were actually honking and waving at us as we were walking by. So I'm like, all right, at least we got our look established, prepared enough to do this walk.
Yeah.
And the second realization was that our body wasn't really prepared for our journey. So I think like 80 miles into it, we're like, oh, you need to do more training before all this. And we had just tapped out. That was our last chance of doing the walk and really trying to do something because finances, right?
Yeah.
To where now I'm like, I'm gonna do the third try, but because of the weather, obviously we have to put it off into next year. Well, this year, and we're gonna be doing it again. I just don't want to say when because I don't want to encounter the same situations we did the first time. But I'm gonna be posting about this journey. I am gonna be just reading pages of our book too along the way because we know that that book is what helped us get through the forge to heal. And in order to do 287 miles, like we need to reach down into our depths of who we truly are and do what our coach says. When we're exhausted, we're going to show ourselves what we're capable of doing. And I'm hoping this walk is a reflection of what the DID community can actually do to our society. Because I think our society really needs our DID to come out. One thing that I'm really proud of, I mean, I'm really proud of our community is knowing that that DID community are some of the most compassionate and most empathetic people on earth. That's what gives us hope that we know that society needs us now more than ever.
Yeah. The irony of you doing I have to just circle back to this because the irony of you doing a walk to raise awareness for DID and getting shot at is I don't even have words for that. It's like you're getting re-traumatized trying to do something good, and you're really highlighting the prejudices and stereotypes out in the world, and I also have this thing in my head going, and the only person who would get back out to try that again after getting shot at is a system. And most people would be like, "The hell with this. I'm lucky to be
Yeah,
alive, and
yeah,
I'm
right.
not. Nope." And you guys are like, "Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we can do this again. Let me just put on some khakis." And
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
wow.
definitely. It's that Rocky blood in us, man. That no matter what life endures, man, no matter what life brings us, we're gonna get back up and do it.
Clearly.
That, and I knew that about us as a system my entire life. I knew that we had the capacity to just take what life had to bring us and just keep going. What I didn't know was how to feel safe to my whole body.
Yep.
That's what I didn't know, and that's the biggest change.
That begs a question, because when we're talking about the nervous system, one of the things that I keep thinking, and I feel like probably some other people are wondering too, were you able to feel the lack of safety in your body? Were you aware of that, or did you have to work at gaining that awareness? Because so many of us are just, we function from the neck up. We have no idea what's going on below there. And there is, when you start tuning into that, there's a ton of muscle tension. There's a ton of like 24/7 bracing, waiting for the next awful thing to come along, whether that's in current day reality or not, that bracing is there. So were you aware of all that stuff, or did you have to work at gaining that awareness and then working to kind of recalibrate and heal your nervous system
Heal the nervous system.
or manage
More like
it? I
work.
don't know what to call it.
So honestly, more like working it out. I didn't, and we didn't realize how weak it really was until now that we put in the work, because that's what it takes. It really does take work.
Mhm.
EDMR was work. Learning how to process rapid eye movement and recalling those memories to not get the emotional, because the moment the emotions came back, that's when our body really started to really convulse because not having the capacity, like I said, to get those emotions in place. There's, especially during that hypnotherapy, there was a session that we did that was, it didn't hit me right there and then. It came that night after that, the night after the session, that my body just remembered everything that was storing. And we woke up from a deep sleep, and it was just so intense that obviously we jumped into bar right away. We had repeatedly until finally, when we were able to recognize what part was really triggered from that memory, we were actually able to isolate it to a certain part in our body, to where once we recognize that, you're like, okay, is this going to be your method of teaching us when you're activated? Is this where you're going to show it? Can you demonstrate it? So it really was a lot of work. It was a lot of internal work and communicating with each other. And that's where the IFS work came into play. I understand the difference of opinion, and that's why I say every symptom is different. If you don't respond well to IFS, admit it to yourself. Do not lie to anyone, because the more you lie to yourself, the more you hinder your healing.
Yeah.
But IFS really did help us to a certain extent. And I say that because there was that time where we're trying to assign a role to one of our parts. You're like, hey, I'm not here for that. I'm like, hey, easy, buddy, easy. So it is a self discovery process. That's why I love where we're at today. So today, we have sacrificed a certain dream. I shouldn't say sacrifice a certain dream of ours, but we more accept it as what we want now. And that really was a peaceful life with our family, something that we didn't have growing up, and something that I want is now is I want to be able to have dinner at the dinner table with my boys. They're 11 and 5, and so only got like a little bit of time left before they really sprout. So I want to cherish that.
Yeah.
So I took this opportunity to be like, you know what? We're going to be a stay at home father, because something that we recognized in ourselves is that we wanted Tim the Two Man Taylor to be our father growing up. You know, we didn't have that. And the more we put that feeling, the more we denied that to seep into our nervous system, the more damaging it became. So as we learned to embrace that that's really what our nervous system craved, and we started giving that attention, man, like the life that I have with my boys is amazing. I love it so much so that like my 5-year-old, his name is Johnny, and he acts like a Johnny, right? So when I don't feel like doing my mental exercises, my face really glitches because I'm trying to filter all the voices. So that's where the glitchy comes into place. And he'll yell, "Dad, you're glitching again." But
You
it's
have to
helpful because
love kids.
I love him. They're brutally honest, man.
Yeah.
But I love it because at the same time, there's this saying that we say to each other, and it is, "I love you all day, every day, no matter what." And it became such a saying that we truly started to embody that as we go around and walk through life. And now that my 9-year-old's 11, it's come to, okay, who's going to say it first to each other today? Who's going to be the last to say it today? Who can say it to each other the most today? And we really walk around in that love and that safety. And it really has expanded more than, like I said, anything that money can buy. So even though we're starving artists right now, basically, we're okay with that because we've built a system that protects our peace. And that's more valuable than anything right now.
Yeah. That's beautiful. You guys have also been doing a lot of or talking with, I think, schools and churches and NAMI and that sort of thing, right?
We did NAMI peer support for a little bit after we got let go. I changed our schedule drastically, but yeah, peer support groups were a thing to do. We reached out to a lot of churches. I'm trying to reach out to the city of Las Vegas right now. I'm trying to reach out to a lot of corporate partners to just go around and speak on breaking the stigma, speak about mental health and how important that is. And that really, like I said, that's become our driving factor. And I am trying to alter the perspective around DID. Understand that DID is not a broken identity,
Right.
that it's an adaptive survival response
Mhm.
and it should be honored and respected.
Wholeheartedly agree. I have a feeling everyone is wishing you well with that endeavor because it's really important. And hopefully, the more people learn about it, the more people will accept it and get to understand that it's just another way of living in the world. There's nothing wrong with it. And I agree, it's an incredible, brilliant superpower. What have some of your favorite healing tools been along your journey? So I know you've really enjoyed the book, The Four Agreements. It's one of our favorite too. And what practices, like what are the things that you have just really felt like have been so beneficial on your journey?
Beneficial was definitely boxing. Boxing is maybe at the core of everything because it really brought peace to more than two or three altars of art. So that is fundamental because even today, coach still be teaching us lessons, even when we don't want to hear it. He'll still teach us lessons about life. So boxing in itself has been really one-on-one therapy. Is oh my god, I can't advocate towards that enough. Even just talking to somebody once a month, even that's why I said we have a support team. You That's why I love the title of your podcast is Healing My Parts. Because you always gotta continuously work at your parts. So the one-on-one therapy, and if I was to do a crescendo of a tripod, another key factor was peer support. I cannot advocate enough or say how important that was because hearing somebody else say out loud what you're going through really calm our nervous system. It allowed our nervous system to learn new ways of understanding what's going on in here. So peer support, one-on-one therapy, boxing, top three.
I love that. I think community is so important too. There's something so healing about it. It's kind of mind blowing that it has historically been discouraged. People will say, oh, you shouldn't put people with DID together in a group. And it's been the most life affirming experience for pretty much everybody that I know.
So I'm so excited for the Healing Together conference. Like, oh my God, this is
Yeah.
gonna be my first time. I'm my first time beehive. Look out, I'm gonna be buzzing.
You will
I'm looking forward to it.
love it. It's an incredible experience. Whether you're virtual or in person, it's amazing. One of the best resources, I think, for people with who are systems.
Definitely. I will still go to the online website because it's a nonprofit organization. I mean, if you're a system, I definitely recommend an infinite mind.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of that, if somebody is listening and they're a system and they feel kind of scared or they're unsure about what to do next, what would you say to them?
First and foremost, there's nothing wrong with you. Stop. Don't be shameful or guilty for what you think might be wrong with you. Have peace. Know that your nervous system did what it had to do in order for you to survive, to protect you, because you were worth protecting in the first place. That's something I would have to definitely tell anybody that just learning their system. Don't be shameful, man. Be proud. You have a superpower. Now you just got to learn to how to harness that superpower. Once you do that, man, the world is your oyster. And I'm here for you. I'm here for all our community members. Reach out.
Love that. What do you wish mental health professionals really understood about systems?
I smile because I just all these just have an opinion, right?
They all do.
Like,
All day.
tell them. Honestly, I would collectively tell them that insight is not always healing. Sometimes progress is just simply stabilizing our system, allowing us to be present, give us time to heal and build up that capacity for that understanding. Because something that we learned is that clarity came after safety. So if you allow consent and timing to arrive first, progress happens naturally.
I love that. What gives you guys hope right now?
And what gives me the biggest hope is the fact that conversations are changing. It really is. I don't know if it's just because we decided to start advocating that we notice that there's less judgment when it comes to mental health. It's not so much as pointing fingers or damaging anymore. There's more curiosity, and that gives me hope.
This has been an incredible conversation. I can't thank you all enough for being willing to come on and to share your story and the things that you're doing. Where can people find you?
That's, I'll be honest. We've come across that question so many times and we still battle. And I think being a DID system, we might relate to this. We still need to survive. We still need that financial income. So they can find us on Amazon. Many
Yeah.
faces and mirror from within. But to we also have an Etsy account. It's called Healing with Courage. And we still have a little shame and guilt when we say that out loud. But it's something that a lot of our parts work together on. And it's basically we develop tools of how to stay grounded during overwhelming times. Now, it's important that, and I think this is why we hesitate, is we're not therapists, we're not certified life coaches. These are all grounding tools that we develop from our grounding, from our lived experience. So this is something that should be used hand in hand with therapy because we can't diagnose you. We can't, what we can do is provide tools to allow you to ground yourself and to be safe in the moment so you could be ready for whatever might come next. And that's Healing with Courage on Etsy because what we found was it takes courage to stay in that forge while you're building who you're becoming.
That's beautiful. We'll make sure to link all of those in the show notes for folks so they can just click and find you. So, again, thank you so much. This has been amazing.
I could thank you, honestly, since the moment we've crossed paths it really has been enlightened. You've provided safety for our nervous system. So we appreciate your contribution to that. I really do hope we see each other more as we venture on this journey.
Absolutely. I am so honored that we can host you here, and I really enjoy our connection.
Vice versa.
And to everybody listening, thank you so much for joining us today. There were so many great takeaways from this conversation, especially parts about really leaning into that place of grounded compassion for your system and for all your parts. There are so many benefits to working through that fear that you might have about getting to know parts or getting to know your scarier parts, to see what's really in there and giving them a safe enough space to soften, and the invitation to all parts of a system to be able to come together and work together and figure out what works for you, whether that's slowing things down to understand things differently or reaching out for more connection and community and seeing what works for other people and trying those out yourselves. So much here. We will be sure to link to Mike's books and the Etsy shop and their Instagram account. And again, thank you for joining us. And until next time, let's keep healing. Thank you for tuning in. You can find our blog on Substack at healingmyparts.substack.com and on Instagram at healingmyparts. Just a disclaimer, any information shared in this podcast is not a substitute for professional therapy or behavioral health care. nor does listening to the podcast constitute a therapist-client relationship. Please be sure to take extra good care of you. And until next time, keep healing and thriving.